I told you, Michigan State can't win this game, but Nebraska can lose it. And that's what they did. Turnover heavy game once again. Was it something new? Was it something different? No, it's the same old fumbles when they shouldn't have fumbles and interceptions that are, I just don't understand how he even makes those throws that are that bad. There are times when Haarberg looks so good that I'm shocked that he can be, I don't know, just he's misreading it. He doesn't have the right awareness. I don't know what the excuse is. I don't know what the answer is either. They tried to pan to Chuba Purdy multiple times on the sideline. And I mean, they insinuated he should get a chance. I'm talking about the announcers, obviously, who were making excuses and trying to defend what Nebraska was doing. But yeah, I told you they couldn't lose this, or Michigan State couldn't win this game. Nebraska would have to lose it. And that's exactly what happened. I saw comments on Twitter and people were complaining about the refs and the penalties and all the missed calls. And I agree, there was a bunch of nonsense, but that wasn't the reason Nebraska lost today. They lost because they lost the turnover battle. They lost because their defense didn't do well against the pass, and they lost because their offense couldn't get it going in the pass game. And Michigan State knew how to stop the run. Keep in mind, Nebraska did do really well with their running backs. They did well with the running plays for the QB. I mean, they had some good moments, but unfortunately, they couldn't put it all together like they were able to in the last few games. Frustrating, but I'm not surprised. Annoying because I really felt like Nebraska was going to get to that 6th win and we would feel comfortable going into these last 3 games, knowing that they were going to be a lot tougher competition. But now that's just not the situation. Now you've got 3 battles coming up. You've got Maryland next week. You've got Wisconsin after that, and then Iowa. And I don't care how good those teams are or how bad they look. Any team can beat Nebraska because Nebraska can beat themselves any week. They just lost to the worst team in the Big Ten, flat out. Michigan State is the worst team in the Big Ten. It's okay. It's still year 1 and there's a lot of growth and we learned a lot. And, you know, we can talk about all the positives. But let's tell it how it is. Nebraska just lost to the worst team in the Big Ten. Frustrating, like I said. I thought their quarterback looked pretty good. I thought their running backs were okay. But I didn't think that Michigan State had enough firepower to be able to score on this defense. And I think that's the most frustrating part. I thought the defense would play better than they did. And I thought that they'd get to the quarterback more often than they did. The Michigan State offensive line, before the game was announced, had to shift some guys around. They had guys who were hurt. I thought, this is a great opportunity for Nebraska to get back there and make some big plays. And Michigan State just played tough. They played tougher than Nebraska for the most part. To start the game, they looked fantastic. What was it in the first half alone? They had 6 of 10 for 141 yards. They outgained Nebraska's offense by 30 yards in the first half. And I think Nebraska dominated time of possession at that point because Nebraska had long drives and they were trying to wear them out. Michigan State just had these big plays downfield and they gashed the defense over and over and over. There was a time at the end of the game when Nebraska's defense did have to come up and make a stand to give Haarberg one more chance. And the defense did show up. They did complete the task. So shout out to the black shirts in that moment. But they didn't have enough game-changing plays. They didn't have enough turnovers, right? You have to be able to match it. If you're going to have a quarterback who's going to make costly mistakes, you need a defense who's going to capitalize on Michigan State's mistakes, and they weren't able to. Haarberg had 3 total turnovers, and it makes you think, does he belong there at quarterback? Because if you can't win the turnover battle, you can't be expected to win games. And when you have a quarterback who's going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over, although he does show that he has plenty of athletic ability and there are going to be opportunities for him to score on any given play because he's so quick and because he's such a strong runner, yeah, it just makes you think. It makes you think, what do you do if Purdy goes in there? What's the offense look like? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm not saying it's the answer. I'm not saying bench Haarberg. I'm just processing what I just watched. Rod says that 11 a.m. start did not look good on us. Thank you for the $11. Was it the 11 a.m. start, or was it that Michigan State came out like they wanted to win and Nebraska came out kind of flat? I don't know what it was. Michigan State for sure wanted to win. Talked about this week. We said Michigan State's playing. It's essentially their senior day. This is their last home game. They are down bad. They have not won a game in the Big Ten yet. This is a great opportunity. They're playing against the Nebraska offense, who's been known to make plenty of mistakes and can lose any game. So all you've got to do is not make mistakes and you'll beat them. What'd they do? They didn't make any mistakes. Michigan State had 0 turnovers. They sacked Haarberg 7 times. They played with two quarterbacks, but really it was just Caton Hauser the entire time. And he had 165 yards passing. They didn't need to be dominant in the run. Frustrating. I'm getting to chat. Hang on. Let me scroll up here. Because I'm here for you guys. Someone DM'd me right after the game. They said, Connor, I need therapy after this. I don't need therapy. We knew it was coming. The line was sketchy. Nebraska was supposed to win this game by 3 points, according to Vegas. That's not right. Nebraska should have won this game by 7 to 10. Nebraska's 7 to 10 points better than this Michigan State team. Riley, thanks for being a member. Josh says, need to launch an investigation into refs across the country. It's so bad this year, it's ruining football for me. You know, there are moments when you scratch your head and say, what the hell was that? But on the same end, Nebraska got lucky on some, and it usually balances itself out. You know, the end play, oh my God, that was very frustrating. I thought maybe Alvano would have a chance to kick a 60-yarder, give Nebraska a chance to tie and go to overtime, and then they didn't call it a forward pass. I think Dean Blandino was calling it objective, or the play-by-play guy was calling it an objective thing for the refs. It's different, whatever each guy sees, which is kind of BS. It should be, we know that if his arm comes to this point, that it's a forward pass and you got to put the time back on the clock. Is what it is. CTB says, agree with you, but the refs certainly cost us the game. If they called the game with at least 75% accuracy, we would have won it. Nebraska plays ugly. It's who we are. There was one play when the receiver caught the ball in the end zone over Quentin Newsome for a touchdown to go up 20 to 10. Ugh. BS, is that the right word? Was that a catch? I mean, you tell me. Nebraska fans will all say it's not a catch. But I think there's some Michigan State fans who feel like they got lucky there as well. Jackson, thank you for the 10. We're so bad on both sides of the ball the whole game, and Harburg just lost most of the whole game. Time to search for a QB next year. Yeah, right now it's not about next year, right? It's about now. What's the answer now? Is Harburg good enough to win one, maybe two of these games down the end? Could Harburg beat Iowa? Harburg against an Iowa defense sounds scary to me. Can Harburg beat Maryland? I feel like he has a good chance. Wisconsin's maybe a toss-up, but against a team like Iowa, Nebraska could have a 5-turnover game. Those are the questions to ask right now. I don't know the answer, obviously. I haven't seen Purdy play. Corey, thank you for the 10. There is no hope. F everything, go Big Red. We just looked like we honestly never stepped off the bus. So incredibly disappointed. So that's interesting, right? Nebraska, after that Michigan game, when they didn't step off the bus, they actually did look defeated, depleted, and gross. Today, they looked okay. They looked at times like they were energetic and like they were excited to be there. In the beginning of the game, it didn't feel that way. In the middle of the game, it didn't feel that way. But it was a little bit choppy, and there were moments when they'd come out and they'd play on fire. The offense ran hard. Okay, Emmett Johnson, 13 carries for 57 yards. Heinrich, 14 carries for 37 yards. Let me share it with you. Anthony Grant, 9 for 35, and Josh Fleeks, 4 for 19. Their averages are 4.8, 3.9, and 4.4 for those running backs, but they had multiple big runs. Grant had a 16. Fleeks had an 8. Emmett Johnson had an 11. They tucked the ball, they ran hard, and they wanted to be there. Running backs played fantastic. Receivers, they got held a bunch. They had some moments where they got overthrown. There was one to Thomas Fedoni. I took a note on this one. This one just pissed me off. Harburg bad. Oh, it was third down near midfield. And he fired one to Lloyd in double coverage that was almost picked off. That was a terrible play. Then there was another one where, what was it? I think he had Fedoni. What was it? It was like Fedoni was coming across the middle and he threw it behind him and above him. Oh, he threw it behind him and he threw it above him on a first down play that would have kept the drive alive. It would have probably resulted in points. There were just a lot of moments that were just stupid. Tommy, thank you for the 2. I can't pop it up and I don't see a comment. It won't pop up for whatever reason. If I see a comment from you, I'll respond to it. Would you guys think about not returning punts? My friend texted me and she said, why is Billy Kemp back there when you have Ethan Nation who came in at the end of the game? Why is Billy Kemp just holding onto the ball, catching it and holding it instead of trying to bring it out? I saw Sean Callahan tweet something about that, and he said, why do we field punts at the 7 or 8 yard line? Why don't we let it roll into the end zone? That was an interesting strategy there. I'm not sure what the answer is, but yeah, it was kind of weird just to field punts and not try to return them. Last week, they got a little nervous though. He had a fumble. I think it was Alex Bullock who fumbled the ball in the punt return? So maybe Matt Rhule's just trying to play a game where they don't turn it over because he knows they can win games with the defense if they don't turn it over. Today, that wasn't the case. Corey, thank you for the 10. Well, now I look like a fool on that 4-0. Great teams beat the refs. That's a fact. This is on Satterfield and his dumb play calling. It puts pressure on the entire team. Beyond pissed, he needs a Dabo call. You know, I don't think the play calling is that bad. I didn't hate it today. He did what he had to do. I think he's gotten better the past couple of weeks being up in the box. You can see, better reads for the passes. He can see when the run game is a good time to, push it right up the middle. He can see when they're coming on blitzes, and, the tendencies are different when you see it from above. Being able to read the tendencies. I think when you have a quarterback who can't execute your game plan, it severely limits what you can call. Is he going to try and call a bland game and not score points? No, because Nebraska has to score to win, especially in a game like this. He has to take some shots. And even though he has a quarterback who, unfortunately, is a little bit of a risk and a liability, he's got to do what he's got to do to try and get points on the board. It was interesting how much the commentators or the play-by-play announcers were against the refs and did feel like Nebraska was getting jammed, though. I like to feel a little bit of support, even though I know they had no horse in the race. Nebraska Edits, thank you for the $10 super chat. If I see a comment from you, I'll respond to it. PK, thank you for the 10. It's great Heinrich can run, but that's why we have running backs. A quarterback needs to be able to throw the ball to his own team. So we had one. There was one that we got bailed out of. He threw it down to the first interception was Alex Bullock, broke out down the left sideline. The corner fell. The safety was in the middle of the field. There was no way, if Harburg would have thrown it 5 yards outside of the receiver to the pylon, there's no way the safety would have been able to beat him there. It would have been a touchdown. Free. Instead, it results in 0 points. It results in the receiver being led inside, but way too far. No way for Bullock to fade back to get it. Safety sitting there right in the middle, picks him off, and obviously we got 0 points off that drive. You go to another drive late in the game. Was it before halftime? It was, I don't know, whatever it was. Malachi Coleman's near the end zone. He overthrows everybody, and it gets picked off. Obviously, it got called back because of a holding, I think. Got bailed out. But yeah, there were some moments where I didn't know how to justify some of those throws. Like I said, though, we can't put unrealistic expectations on this quarterback. You have to ride with what you've got. You've got a quarterback who is known to be a good runner, a quarterback who is known not to be able to throw that ball that well. So you get what you get. Do you want him in there to make explosive plays at the end of the game? Heinrich Harburg, when Nebraska needed it the most, down 10 points with 3 minutes left, tucks it down, runs for 43 yards to get him into scoring range, and then the next couple plays, Emmett Johnson scores a touchdown, I think. So you take the bad with the good, unfortunately. Is just at what point is the bad too much bad and you have to make a change? Just like it was too much bad with Jeff Sims. There was no way you could afford to leave Jeff Sims in there. You weren't going to be able to offset the bad with his legs and with running plays. It wasn't working. PK, I like the idea that you're talking about with running backs, but you have to, if you're going to have a quarterback situation like this and he can't throw that well, you're going to have to do the dual threat game. You're going to have to keep the defense guessing, because if the defense always knows that it's only going to be a running back game plan, then they're going to be able to just sell out for it. And they're going to be able to sit there, wait for interceptions, and sell out to stop the run with the running backs. A lot of what Harburg did today on the ground was on broken plays, and he was just escaping the pocket and running around because there was nothing downfield. Those were actually good plays. He had a few that broke out. But he got sacked 7 times. The offensive line wasn't good enough today. There were a couple coverage sacks, so we'll blame that on who? The receivers? Harburg not finding his receiver early enough, not throwing it to him on his break, not throwing to the right guy. I mean, there were plenty of times when I saw crossing routes with guys wide open and Harburg just didn't see him, overlooked him, and obviously Nebraska didn't come away with points on those drives. Tommy, Wisco lose today. Let's go Illinois and Northwestern. Yeah, so technically the Big Ten West is still alive, right? Northwestern could beat Iowa at Wrigley Field. Illinois could beat Minnesota. And Wisconsin, did they lose? I didn't check the scores yet, guys. I'm just going to be honest with you. I haven't looked at any football. A little bit, but not much. Either way, I don't really care about that right now. I don't care about Nebraska winning the West. I care about getting to a bowl game. I care about watching this team get better. And it just doesn't feel like after this game, there's much hope for them to get better. It's like, how do we put a Band-Aid on what we have to try and make it through these last three? Because there's not any more change coming, right? These last three are going to be tough. Evan, thank you for the 10. I agree with you that Nebraska lost this game, but you can't say that the missed PI and that BSTD catch didn't have a massive impact on the final score. Oh well, on the next week, GBR for life. I 100% do agree with you. It had a massive impact on the final score. The final, what was it? The final play where he threw the ball and it got knocked to the ground and they called it a fumble and they didn't give it back to him. I think that was the one I was referring to mainly about the refs because people were complaining that there should have been more time on the clock. Was Nebraska going to throw a 25-yard pass to get Alvano into field goal range? Probably not. But those two calls were obviously much bigger. It's frustrating, Evan. GBR, thank you for the 10. Jaden, thank you for the 10. I will bet you $100 Nebraska loses all three games next. This team sucks. This is 2019 all over again. When we went 5-3 in 2019 and we had better QB play, you'd have to be insane to think we're getting a dub. Okay, you have to remember we're playing Big Ten West teams. Anyone can win. Nebraska's bad. I'm not arguing with you on that. I would take you on that $100 bet, by the way. If you message me on Discord, Instagram, anywhere, I'll bet you 100 that Nebraska wins one of those three. I'll actually give you plus odds. I'll bet you 100. I'll bet you 120 to win 100. So DM me and we can make that happen. Anyway, Nebraska plays Maryland, Wisconsin, and Iowa, who are all teams known to shoot themselves in the foot. All teams with weaknesses and with flaws, just like Nebraska has. Any given week, a team can win. Michigan State, 2-6 in the Big Ten, hasn't had any ounce of hope or any reason to believe they could win another game this season. They just pulled off an upset over Nebraska. So I understand why you're being pessimistic. I understand the negativity, and I don't fully disagree with you on any of the things you're saying. I get it. But any given week, any team can win, and Nebraska 100% can win next week and the week after and the week after that. There's still hope, and getting to a bowl game, I still believe in. I'm still sold on Nebraska getting to 6 wins. That was the expectation for this year, my expectation personally for this year, and I still believe it will come true. So where I'm frustrated about today and what feels like kind of shitty about today is that I felt like Nebraska had a really good chance to get to the Big Ten West Championship. And this kind of, dampened those hopes. Or not get to the Big Ten West Championship, to win the Big Ten West and get to the Big Ten Championship game. Nebraska Edits, thank you for the 10. I don't know if you sent another comment or not. Rod, thank you for the 20. Thanks for being a member. I used to think that Harburg's running ability was the serviceable trait that he possessed. The last 2 games, he seemed hesitant to run hard. Did all the talk about Harburg taking hits ruin him? I don't know if the taking hits ruined him. I think that there were opportunities for him to run and be explosive today. And when those holes were there, he took them. But I also think they had a spy on him. And because he knew there was a spy on him and because he saw that the linebacker was ready to go whenever he stepped up into the pocket, he had to be a little bit more cautious and pick and choose his battles. If he runs every time, he's going to get stopped at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be a negative play. Something bad will happen out of it. And in the beginning of the season, he could just fly and be free because offenses or defenses weren't as prepared for what Nebraska's offense was going to run. So I think it's just changing now. Northwestern, Purdue, now Michigan State, they all knew what was coming. They all knew how to stop it, and they all have really fast defenses. Purdue was actually the worst defense of the 3, but Northwestern and Michigan State had really good linebackers and really good defensive backs. And yeah, Harburg is a victim of his offensive line, So It's tough. It's hard to expect him to continue that level of play that he had in the beginning of the season, because eventually these defenses would catch on and the defensive coordinators would be smart enough to know to spy him and to stop him, you know? All right, Nebraska Edits, I found your comment. Thank you for the 5. Do you think Malik Murphy from Texas would transfer here? If not, do you think we get someone in the portal? So it's way too early to talk about. Nebraska, if they were to go for a transfer quarterback, would have a great chance at getting a really good quarterback from a big time school. I'm not going to say Malik Murphy, but a guy like Malik Murphy. Would I love to have a Malik Murphy, a guy who's athletic and who has a little bit more of proven throwing ability? Oh, hell yeah. I don't know who the options are. They talked about the quarterback at Tulane. Can't remember his name right now. It starts with a K. Whatever it is. There are options, and there will be options. And Nebraska's an attractive place because they're on the uphill now. Nebraska's growing. They're getting better. They're going to have some good receiver recruits come in. So there's hope that they will get a better quarterback for next year. We'll see what happens. Max says play calling and scheme is definitely not bad. Has honestly been good mostly all year. No QB, inexperienced wide receivers and running backs, unathletic offensive line. This entire season has been a credit to the coaching. That's why it's hard for me to blame Satterfield. That's why it's hard for me to blame any of the coaches, because they're working with what they've got, you know? Not saying the players on this team are bad, but they might not fit into or they might not be the personnel that fits into this scheme perfectly. So they have to work around with what skill set they do have, right? This team was recruited to play a certain way. And now this new offensive and defensive staff comes in and says, okay, we're going to take all the things that you're good at and we're going to make you do it our way. It's tough to do that, you know? So I'm not going to say the players are bad. I'm not going to say that the coaches are bad. I'm going to say that it might be a mismatch that wasn't made in heaven, and it's going to take time to build out a roster that fits what they want to do. Make sense? Robert, thank you for the $5. OL was horrendous. I can't disagree with you, though. Harburg was tentative and didn't see open receivers all game. The wide receiver drops were disappointing. Keep the faith, GBR. Yeah, the wide receiver drops are very frustrating, but it's also really hard to watch Harburg throw it behind them or throw bad balls. It's tough to watch the wide receiver drops because you know you're not going to get many perfect passes out of the quarterback, and when you do get a perfect pass, you're like, God, I just wish he would hold on to it. There was a hitch route. Was it a hitch? Whatever it was. I think it was a comeback. It was Alex Bullock on the outside, one-on-one with the DB. Ball hits him in the hands. Oof, painful. It was 3rd and 6. That went to 4th down. Nebraska punted it away. You had the perfect ball by Harburg. You had another one to Anthony Grant. Mind you, he had got his head around as the ball came like this. It was really tough timing. If he would have made it, it would have been a fantastic catch, but he didn't get it. So there were a couple drop balls. It's just things didn't go their way. Maurice, thank you for the $5 super chat. If I see a comment, I'll respond to it. Jeff, thank you for the 10. Thank you for being a member. Embarrassing. Hope we still manage to make a bowl game this year. Not looking good. Hey, keep the faith. Like I said, there are 3 winnable games left on the schedule. This team still has a good defense. There is still a lot of opportunity within the offense. The running backs all looked fantastic today. That's the positive, right? Heinrich Harburg still has ability. And I think that Michigan State had, let me think, Maryland's defense, not as good as Michigan State. Iowa's defense is better than Michigan State. But Wisconsin, I think that Michigan State might be the best defense out of these last 4 teams we play. So, hey, there's still positive and there's still hope. I'm telling you. Don't get too down on yourself. Public Eyes Outdoors, I cannot read your comment. It won't let me click it open. It says it says retracted. But thank you for the 5. If I see something else, I'll respond to it. David, thank you for the $2. And thank you for being a member. Harburg kept us close with that long run for a TD. Yeah, that's the good, right? There's good to having Harburg, and then there's obviously detrimental to having Harburg. If you would have had a quarterback that could throw the ball a little bit better, would you have needed to have that last minute TD, that TD run for 43 yards with 2 minutes left? Probably not. You'd probably have gotten in the end zone a couple more times, and Nebraska would have won this comfortably. I think Nebraska should have won this game by 4 to 7 points, no problem. Honestly, Nebraska was a 4 to 7 point team, better than Michigan State. With their quarterback play, they were not. With their quarterback play, they were unable to win because they had 3 turnovers, and they didn't hit their open receivers when they needed to the most. So they were a quarterback away today, which is, it's unfortunate and it's really tough, right? It sucks because I don't want to blame one guy for a loss, but, and I wouldn't say Heinrich is to blame for this loss, by the way. A lot of factors here. But if you had a quarterback who threw it a bit better, Nebraska would have won today. Also, Marquise Buford played today. He had a couple big tackles. He had one on, who was it? He had one on the receiver who Alante Brown threw it to. That was massive. And they did another one where he came up in the middle of the field, crushed, I think it was a running back or a receiver. So Marquise Buford's back. That was great. Let's see. Okay, I'm scrolling through chat, guys. I got to get to the bottom because it's rendering. Okay, we're back. Caleb, thank you for the $5. Thank you for being a member. This team did not show up today. Also, get Satterfield out of here. Heinrich is not a passing QB. Okay, so Caleb, I hear you. What is your preference? Who is your preference? Who would you rather see out there at quarterback? You haven't seen Purdy yet. The last time you saw Purdy, you saw Purdy. Jeff Sims, what are the other options, right? If those guys don't have the upside that Heinrich Haarberg does have, would you rather have Haarberg with the upside, or would you rather have one of those two? I mean, it's tough when you're going to say, let's break in Purdy in the last 3 games of the season versus 3 teams who are all bowl teams, all pretty good. I think it's just a tough transition at this point. If you want to win the games, you kind of got to work around Haarberg's deficiencies and find ways to win with him. Today, they just didn't work around Haarberg's deficiencies very well. He had the 3 turnovers, and the offensive line wasn't there for him, and it's tough. And then you say, get Satterfield out of here. What don't you like that Satterfield did? I think Satterfield made the calls he had to make. I think Nebraska needed to push it downfield at times. I think Nebraska had to run the ball the way they ran the ball, and I thought they did a really good job. They had a few plays that were big runs, 10-plus yards multiple times. I loved Emmett Johnson today. I thought they gave it to him, and they timed it well, right? They brought in the right running backs. They rotated that group, and they timed it when Michigan State was waiting for a pass, and then that's why they had these huge holes to go for 10 yards. I actually liked what we saw from him. But thank you for the 5, Caleb, and I'd love to hear more from you. Rod, thank you for the 10. There is still hope. All is not lost, and we will go bowling GBR. See, that's the energy we need. We got to manifest it. We got to believe that this team will get there, because this team will get there. They've got 2 home games left on this schedule. They're good enough to win either of those games and their road game. Nebraska is going to come out on top in one of those games. It's just going to be tough. Kyle says Wisconsin would be winnable if it wasn't on the road. Look, Wisconsin just lost to Indiana. Wisconsin is a beatable team. Any of these teams are beatable teams. Cornborn Mike, thank you for the €5. Is that what that is? Looks like euros, yeah. Refs ignoring the face mask penalty on Michigan State was BS. That was BS. We got lucky because after that penalty, Michigan State snowballed with like one penalty after another, and it results in, was it a touchdown? Was it a field goal? I can't remember now. I can't remember. Whatever. You guys know. Nebraska, Still, Nebraska didn't get the offense started on time, and the pass protection could have been better. Pass protection just... 7 sacks today was rough. I don't know if I can blame them all on the offensive line. I think part of it's on the receivers and Haarberg. Haarberg got himself sacked by not throwing it early enough to receivers. You have to throw it on their break. You have to find the guy who's open underneath, and he wasn't doing it. He was waiting for things to develop too long, and when it wasn't there, he would get sacked. It was really frustrating to watch. PK, thank you for the 5. At any rate, we are a first-year team and growing. Still better than the last 5 years. Thank you. It's funny how fast everyone changes to say we suck. Have faith. It's okay to say we suck. I have no problem with that. It's okay to say, certain groups on this team are underperforming. It's okay to complain. I get it, because we have expectations now that we've watched what this team can do. It would be like if this is the perfect example. I come to you and I make the content I make every week. And then I show up one week and my content's garbage. My mic is way too far off my face like this, and I'm quiet. My lighting's turned off and I look weird. It's like, what are you doing? Be more consistent. I know how well you can do. just live up to it. So it's frustrating for us as fans who love and support this team so much, and we know what they can do. So we set expectations for them to do that. And then when they don't do that, we get really frustrated, right? This isn't the NFL. This is college. You get a lot more inconsistency in college. And it's football. Anything can happen. A lot of it's driven by motivation. It's driven by the way guys feel in the moment, because it's your body, it's your health, right? So it's tough, but we do that naturally as people. We put expectations on things to happen, and when it doesn't happen, we get really frustrated with it. We call it out. My dad did it to me all the time growing up. He complained non-stop about the shit I was doing, right? So it's the same way that we complain about Nebraska. We get frustrated. Andrew, thank you for the 5. Warren Buffett ought to step up to the plate and graciously commit a cool $1 billion to the NIL. It would bring us back immediately. GBR, 6 wins will happen. You know, why doesn't he do that? Why doesn't Warren Buffett just step up to the plate and say, you know what? I know how much Nebraska football means to the state of Nebraska, and I could totally change the program and it wouldn't even hurt me. I wouldn't feel it. Why won't he do it? Someone needs to get me on the phone with Warren Buffett, because I could convince him. I could sell him on that. It's the equivalent of me giving like $20. It's nothing. He wouldn't care. Shane, thank you for the 5. If I see a comment for you, I will respond to it. Chris says, do you think Sims is not practicing as well as Heinrich at this point, or is it based on the games that Heinrich is remaining the starter? I think it's based on Sims' history. Sims has a history of fumbling the ball when he gets opportunities. He got another opportunity last week. He fumbled the ball right away. You can't afford to put him in. Count up how many plays he's been in and count how many turnovers have happened while he's been in the game. It's tough, man. Dylan, thank you for the 5. Thank you for being a member. Do you still think that we could win the West, or do you think it's out of the question? It's not out of the question. Anything can happen in the West. The West sucks. Let's take a look. Big Ten. Okay. You have Wisconsin, Nebraska tied at 3-3. The winner of this game potentially could jump the other. Iowa and Minnesota both play games today. Iowa is a 5-point favorite. Minnesota is a 2.5-point favorite. They're playing it. They're playing basically at Northwestern. They're playing in Chicago. They're playing a home game against Illinois. I think Illinois could beat Minnesota. I know Illinois could beat Minnesota. So if these two teams lost today, that would even everything back up. Anything that we have in our mind as a possibility, or had in our mind as a possibility going into this week, is still alive at this moment. I don't know how this day will shake up. I don't know how it'll finish out. But at this moment, when you ask this question, anything could happen. Master said, Rhule's halftime speech didn't hit hard enough. It didn't. It definitely didn't. Jordan, I can't pop up your super chat. It won't let me. It says message retracted. Thank you for the $2. And if you have another comment, I'll look for it. Blake, thank you for the 5. Michigan State fan here. Both teams tried their best to lose the game. You guys will definitely beat Wisconsin and Iowa. Rooting for you guys to go bowling. Well, thank you, Blake. That's a positive thing. I don't know. I think Michigan State had some bad moments, but I actually think they played a much better game, a much more complete game than Nebraska. They tried their best in terms of penalties, and they made a lot of stupid mistakes and could have cost themselves the game with the penalties. But their offense and their defense came to play today. Their quarterback looked good. Their running game, even though they got stopped multiple times because Nebraska has a really good run D, they ran it really hard. The offensive line protected. They came out with the trickery. They had multiple trick plays that looked good. I mean, overall, Michigan State looked... this is probably their most complete performance that I've watched this year. No, it is. It was better than the Rutgers game, I think. They played really strong, and their defense looked legit. I thought this was going to be the best defense that Nebraska's faced since Michigan, and it definitely was. Corey, thank you for the 5. Granted, the O-line was bad today, but my issue with the play calling was that we had no deep throws to Lloyd, Coleman, or Doss. 2 shots each, in my opinion. It was one-on-one man-to-man coverage, and they weren't beating their guys. So if you throw it, you're really throwing up interceptions, right? It's tough. I don't think those guys ever got separation, and because they couldn't get separation, it's hard to take those shots downfield. I get it. You want more deep throws, but that's just calling for more turnovers, I think. Or that's at least the way Satterfield looked at it. That's probably why they didn't take him. And Harburg's not a great deep ball guy. He's not hitting those deep shots. If he was hitting those deep shots more consistently, I think they would be willing to take more of them. Go Big Red Orlando. Thank you for the 5. In the second half, it seemed like we abandoned the run. Why? That is our bread and butter. So they didn't abandon the run. They kept running it. I don't know what the difference was. I took a note, actually. Let's see. So they finished the game. Nebraska, Michigan State. I closed out of it already. Should have known that you guys would ask another question about the run game. Okay. They finished the game with 154 yards rushing. In the first half, I think Nebraska had 100 yards rushing. So they only rushed for like 50 yards in the second half. Don't quote me on that. I think they only had 100 yards, or they only had 50 yards rushing in the second half. I can't remember the exact number. Anyway, they did try to run it, but they were getting stopped. And they were also playing from behind most of the second half. And when you're playing from behind, it's pretty predictable to know that you're going to pass the ball, which gets annoying, but it's also what has to happen, because if you don't pass the ball, you're not going to pick up those first downs, since this Michigan State defense was all over the run. Nebraska's running backs were averaging 4.4 and 3.9 yards a carry. That was with big runs that they were breaking off, which means there were plenty of runs that were getting stopped at the line of scrimmage because they were coming in. They weren't even bringing much pressure. They were just the defensive line was beating guys off the line. There was one where Justin Evans-Jenkins, the guard, stepped up to block his guy. Emmett Johnson, I think it was Emmett Johnson, is right behind him, tries to go through it was through the 2, and defensive tackle beat Jenkins and stopped him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I think that was a sequence that happened. I'm trying to remember it exactly. It's hard to remember every play. Anyway, when he got back there and stopped him, I knew in that moment Nebraska's going to have to come out throwing it more, because this offensive line isn't strong enough to win their battles up front. If they're not strong enough to win one-on-one with the defensive tackles, the linebackers are right behind them to stop the run. Nebraska's not going to be able to be productive in the run game. The answer is to throw it. The answer is to make the defense step back a little bit and stop bringing so much pressure, because when they sell out to stop the run, since there is no quarterback that can make the throws he's supposed to make, they're going to end up getting turnovers. They're going to end up with, 3rd and out, 3 and 6, whatever it is. 3 and 6 turn to 4th and 6 and then a punt. That's the way I look at it. I think the real question is, why can't they be more effective in running the ball? We know the answer. The offensive line's not ready. The offensive line's not strong enough to get the right push, but we wish that they could run it better. Jordan, thank you for the $2. Merch deals soon. Also, what's the best route to 6? Yeah, I'll do a merch deal. I'll do a November, like Black Friday thing, whatever, November 4th. I'll throw out a discount code after this stream for 25% off everything for all of November for Black Friday. So discount code coming. I'll post it on my feed. You can see it on my YouTube feed. What's the best route to 6? We only need to win one game. So the best route to 6 is win next week at home against Maryland. The second best route to 6 is win the next game against Wisconsin. And the third best route to 6 is win the last game against Iowa. The realistic route to 6, in my opinion, is probably to win next week. And then the second most realistic is if Wisconsin doesn't have their quarterback back, then it's to beat Wisconsin. If Wisconsin does have their quarterback back, then it's to beat Iowa. I think Iowa at home is a more winnable game than Wisconsin on the road. David, thank you for the 5. At least this year, we have a reason to be excited for the future of Nebraska football. The last several years, there was none. And that is the bottom line. That is what matters. This year wasn't going to be a huge year. This year was going to be a build back year. This year was going to be a year to get shit together, a year to find out what the identity is, see what these coaches have, who they could build with. They found out. You know who the true freshmen are, some of the sophomores and underclassmen are that'll come back, who are going to make an impact going forward for 2, maybe even 3 years to come. You know what the identity of this team is, and now you know what to expect. You have a lot more hope. Next year's schedule is manageable. It's not easy, but it's manageable. Nebraska can win 8, 9, dare I say 10. Nebraska can win a lot of games next year, and because of that, it should give you hope. It should make you excited. And this year was the year where they lay the groundwork. This was the year where they say, can we do enough to get to a bowl game? And can we learn who we are? Can we bring the OOU, the 1-0 mentality to Lincoln? And they did. And it's working. So that's the positive. Recruits are going to see it. Fans are going to see it. We'll all get behind it. We all have gotten behind it. And although there are going to be frustrating moments like losses to Michigan State, who's been the worst team in the Big Ten, things are looking up. John, thank you for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate your work. Looks good. Sounds good. Glass half full attitude. Hey, I try my best, John. I appreciate you being here. It means a lot to me because the reason I make this content is because everyone who's here that's willing to watch it. But yeah, thank you for being here. Christian says, I'm going to make my girlfriend follow your channel. That's very nice of you, Christian, trying to boost those subscribers. We're trying to get to 20,000. We're close. So if you have any Nebraska friends or fans that you talk to, just let them know Corn Craze is live after every game, giving gut reactions or instant reactions. I say gut reactions because I watch Carricker's interviews, and you guys know Adam Carricker and his channel always drop a gut reaction right after the game. So the same way I do my live reactions, he goes and he makes his own. But Carricker Chronicles is a sponsor of Corn Craze. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure you go and check out carrickerchronicles.com. I linked their website down in the description box below, so it's easy for you to find. And then make sure you check out his YouTube channel. Like I said, just Carricker Chronicles, or it's Carricker Chronicles 90, or just search Adam Carricker. You'll find all of his content there. He has some really good interviews with players, former coaches. He talks about the Big Ten. Adam's got great content. He's a big supporter of us. So yeah, thanks for supporting our show, Adam. Tommy says, seeing Marquise Buford at number 24 was so weird. Marquise used to wear number 20, or used to wear number 1 this year. Obviously, number 1 is Billy Kemp, so he switched to 24. It was kind of strange seeing that, I agree, but it was nice seeing him back out there on the field. Great tackler. He was a strong hitter last year. Marquise has a bright future. He should be a starting safety for Nebraska next year. He'll be fully healthy. So lots to look forward to. I'm telling you, there are a lot of pieces coming back for this team. Today sucks. Today's frustrating. It's annoying. I lost a lot of money betting on Nebraska -3. We can all agree today sucked. But there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. King Spartacus, thank you for the 5. I wonder if Matt Rhule is going to do another Sunday night practice like they did after the Michigan game. I don't think so. I think the team played well enough to win today. I think as a whole, the team did what they had to do. I think there were some struggles, some moments where they wish they would have had him back. I think this turnover thing is the issue. I don't think it's a toughness thing. I think they showed up, they wanted to win, they fought, and they did what they could. They weren't consistent all the way through, but they did enough to not have to practice on a Sunday night. That's my takeaway. Maybe he'll do it, but no, I think they showed up. They played with heart at times. The problem was you played with heart in some levels, and then in other levels they didn't. It was like the defensive line was playing strong at one point, the linebackers were playing strong, but the DBs weren't. There were just some hiccups. So it's hard to get everybody on the same page and be perfect. Derek, thanks for being a member. Why was Billy Kemp fielding every single punt? Just out of fear? Pinned us every time. Billy Kemp was not going to return one today because he's still limited. He has an ankle injury. I think ankle or knee, or maybe knee. I can't remember all these injuries. There's been freaking 20 of them. Anyway, Kemp isn't ready to play yet, so they just want him to be back there to catch the ball to make sure that they didn't fumble it, because we've seen some fumbling issues with the punt returners, and they don't want to run into that same issue. Nebraska cannot afford to turn the ball over. You turn the ball over too many times, you lose games. We watched it happen today. Shane, thank you for the $1. If I see a comment from you, I'll respond to it. CTB on top. What channel of yours has 100K? I see the play button. I talked about this yesterday in my thing. I'm going to tell you guys again just because I know that play button gets confusing. I wasn't going to make my camera this wide. My friends came over yesterday and helped me build out my new setup. They did a really good job, but they wanted to give me more depth because I know you guys like depth and being able to see more. So that play button ended up in there. That was from the first channel I built with a brand called Hollywood Unlocked. It was a media blog, and I learned how to do YouTube when I built their channel from scratch back starting in 2015. So I built that from 0 to 250,000. We had a really small team, and I ran the entire YouTube. I learned a ton about it, and that was actually the motivating thing that led me to Corn Crazed. I really wanted to have my own YouTube channel. I wanted to have my own voice. I knew how to do all the back end and how to build the channel up, how to do all the marketing, and I said, if I can build something like that, 200,000, something I'm not interested in, and don't care about at all, which is like celebrity gossip and media, then I 100% could build a channel where I talk about something I'm so passionate about, which I chose Nebraska football. So that's what that subscribe button is, or that, what do you call that? Silver play button is with the subscribe logo on it. Scott, thank you for the $5. If I see a comment from you, I'll respond to it. Go Big Red Orlando. Thank you for the 5. I agree the future is bright. All of the underclassmen are getting a lot of experience this season, and it's a foundation for the future. See, that's the positivity. That's how you got to look at it. Things aren't going to go perfect this year, and we don't need to expect them to be perfect this year. But we're building a foundation. Next year is going to be fantastic. This year's been fun, but next year will be even better. Shane, thank you for the 5. We got humbled. We needed that. Get them in full pads, Rhule. We're going 3-0. GBR, fan from Pennsylvania. Maybe that's the mentality now. Maybe these guys are going to be pissed off again. They got pissed off after they lost to Michigan. They came out, they beat Illinois. They went on a run. They played with fire and with passion. Maybe the teams they were playing weren't good enough, and then they lost motivation. They lost the fire they needed. Now they lost. They got embarrassed. They played like shit. Does that mean they come back and they go on another 3-0 run? If they do, we're going to be all celebrating. We're going to be very happy. Hopefully it works out. Devon says, I just want to know what happened with our defense today. I know we aren't the best at preventing passes, but today was horrendous. Yeah, one-on-one. Tommy Hill got beat. Quentin Newsom got beat. Tommy Hill got beat like 3 times. They played him inside on man-to-man, and the defense just wasn't prepared. They left the middle of the field wide open a few times. The pass defense has been questionable this year, though. They just haven't played teams that pass it and can capitalize on it. Michigan State was the first team who was able to really capitalize on it. Corey says, why does Alex Bullock get the playing time he does? He drops 1 to 2 balls a week. Kemp was back there this week because they don't trust Bullock. Yeah, the Bullock deal is he's a athletic receiver who runs really good routes, and they find value in that. That's why he's out there. I think it's tough because Nebraska doesn't have any elite top-level talent. And when you're playing against some of the elite top-level Big Ten defensive backs and linebackers, you want to have talent that matches up with them. And some of their best talent, Malachi Coleman, for example, who is a top 100 receiver in the country, is a true freshman. He might need more time to develop. So, it's really tough. Looking through the comments, guys. You guys have some funny ones. Z guy says, here were all for everyone who wanted to count them up. The missed calls, no face mask call, touchdown completion call, multiple no PIs and holding calls. And if those calls were made, Nebraska would have won. Maybe it's true, but Nebraska still had 3 turnovers. Nebraska still didn't make the plays they needed to make. And because of that, they lost the game. So it's hard to make all these excuses. It's hard to say, oh, well, it's the ref's fault and it's da-da-da. We know where the issue is. We've known what it is all year. Nebraska turns the ball over too much. I haven't listened to Matt Rhule's press conference. I'll listen to it after this. I'm interested to see what he has to say. What's he think about the turnovers? I mean, I know what he thinks. He's freaking tired of it. But I'm going to guess he says what I say. Or I'm going to guess he thinks the way that I think. What's the solution? Who do you put back there? They've tried 2 quarterbacks now. Both have been turnover prone. Do you try a third in the last 3 games of the season? Sounds a little dangerous. Husker Nation, thank you for the 10th. Thank you for being a member. Didn't this week seem like something was off attitude-wise? I'm glad we're setting the correct foundation. I don't know if it felt like this week was off attitude-wise. Obviously, I'm in California, not in Nebraska, so I don't feel the vibes or the energy directly. I don't know what's going on over there. It felt a little off because I didn't like that Vegas said that Nebraska was a 3-point favorite. I felt like Nebraska is a 7-point favorite in this spot. And because they were only a 3-point favorite, it did feel off. It felt like Michigan State might have something up their sleeve. Even though they couldn't fill out their stadium, those players still wanted to win in their last home game, So that felt off. If we're talking about the game today felt off to start the game. When we came out and let them go on a long drive, fortunately, the defense held them to a field goal, but when they went on a long drive, that felt off. It felt like Illinois a few weeks back when what'd they do? Oh, they let up a long drive. It was like 50 yards, but then they held them on the goal line, back-to-back plays. It felt like the game itself, Nebraska had motivation for 50% of it. They played really strong and really passionate half the time. And the rest of the time, Michigan State was on fire. They played with confidence. They were jumping up and down and they were excited. And Nebraska just didn't have that same energy. So I guess it felt off in that way, unfortunately. I don't know how you spark guys and get them pumped up, though. I don't know how, I know how to do it. Matt Rhule does it in those pregame and halftime speeches. You see them in the videos they release every week. But short of that, I don't know how to get them amped up. Maybe give them all Red Bulls. Maybe that's a new thing. We need to get Red Bull to sponsor Nebraska football. I don't know if anyone has a connect at Red Bull. Maybe we shoot that over to Matt Rhule. That could help. The Dapper Clapper, thank you for the $5 super chat. I'll respond to a comment if I see one pop up. Idaho Husker with a comment that I felt like, a comment that matches what I felt like should have happened. Coleman, it looked like he got the first down. And after that, it was ruled a 3rd and 1. So the clock kept winding and Nebraska's clock burned from like 38 seconds down to 19. That hurt. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because it's about the spot on the field, right? It's not about, they're not going to go and review it. So spot on the field said he was a yard short. It looked like he probably got there. And unfortunately, things just didn't go our way in that moment. There was a comment earlier in the chat. I can't remember who said it, but they said, great teams overcome the little nonsense. Great teams overcome bad calls. Great teams overcome, ball placement and clock stoppage. Nebraska's not a great team yet. They aren't strong enough to fight through that. They have to deal with, playing really close games. So it is what it is. There's still hope. I'm still excited. There's still reason to believe that this team can get to 6 wins, can still finish with 7 wins even. And I'm excited for next week. This isn't going to hold me back or lower my expectations or anything else. I'll be back this week with a video, hopefully on Monday. I'll have some ththings to talk about. Obviously, you guys are a little frustrated, just like I am, and it's going to put a damper on our day, but there's still plenty of great football to watch. Washington's playing USC today at home. Washington's playing USC today at the Coliseum. USC's at home. LSU is playing at Alabama. That'll be a good one. So there's good football to watch. Try to keep your head up. Nebraska's still in a great spot to end the season on a good note. They're in a great spot to have a good recruiting class and then let this roll into a 2024 that should be really special in Matt Rhule's second year. So guys, thank you for being here with me today. I had a great time talking with all you. It's really frustrating, but I like to process the losses with a bunch of my friends, 400 plus of you here. So if you haven't hit it yet, hit the like button to help support the channel. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe because I'm trying to hit 20,000 subscribers. I'm grinding it out. I'm doing my best. This team, is helping me too, because the more they win, the more people are interested in watching the content. Anyway, with all that said, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.